Have they noticed the door standing in front of them beginning to give just slightly under the weight of their own hand? Not the door marked achievement, not the door everyone else around them seems to be walking through already, not the one they have been trying to force with a stronger prayer or a longer list of reasons the Lord should let them in. The Lord asks them for a moment alone right now before they reach for that handle again. Before this message ends, He wants to show them why the silence on the other side felt like rejection instead of what it actually was. His word already settled it before either often said a word today. There is an entrance set in front of them that no one not aware of a hard week knot. The guilt of how long they stayed away is able to shut. They can stay a moment. There is no rush inside his room. Stop here for a second. Just here. No performance, no apology, no rehearsed line. Only them. The door, and him already leaning from the other side. This is not only about a door with hinges. It is about every kind of barrier they have quietly assumed stands between them. A gate they think requires the right password, a window they assume stays shuttered unless they have earned daylight. A lock they imagine only the deserving get to turn. None of that language was ever really about hardware. It was about them deciding long before they ever met him that closeness has to be earned in advance. He sees the hand they keep resting on that handle without turning it. Not because they do not want in. Some part of them decided long ago that the room behind it is reserved for people carrying bigger requests than theirs. They have knocked, holding a heavy offering in their arms, a burden heavy enough to justify the visit, proof that the journey was worth his time. Yet nothing feels fast enough, so they assume the door has been bolted shut from his side. The one who prays between busy meetings and closes the app before the message finishes loading. He already heard the entire prayer. Even the words they deleted before sending. A merchant looking up for the night talks to him the way he talks to a landlord, quick, formal. Finishing the rent is paid. None of this is hidden from him. Why does a doorway they built together with him end up feeling like it belongs to somebody else? But look closer at the doorway itself. Every threshold has a strip of wood or stone underfoot, worn smooth by feet that crossed it 1,000 times before theirs ever did. That worn place remembers. It holds the shape of everyone who paused there hesitant before finally stepping through. Theirs is no different. Every hesitation they have ever had standing in front of his doorway has been noticed, not judged. Noticed. They do not need to overhaul their whole lives before they qualify for this kind of visit. They do not need the guilt resolved, the habit broken, the schedule fixed, or the family healed before they are welcome. They bring the version of themselves that exists right now, unfinished. A little tired. That is the only version he has asked for. He was never interested in meeting the edited one. A notification buzzes in the middle of a prayer and gets answered before the sentence to him is even finished. A calendar fills every gap that quiet might have used. None of this makes them unusual. It makes them someone living in a world built to interrupt exactly the kind of stillness he keeps asking them for. He is not competing with their phone for a place in line. He asks them to notice how rarely anything gets their full attention anymore. His included, and to give it to him on purpose, at least once. Right here. He has been standing at the entrance of his own house more often than they think, waiting on the handle to turn from their side instead of his. Not because he is locked out. He made this a place they get to choose to enter, not a place he drags them into. The ache is not new to him. Longer than they have wanted a minute with him, he has wanted one with them. That is a strange thing for the father to say out loud. But he said it anyway. Long before today, someone handed them a picture of authority behind the closed office door. Busy, important, reachable only through an assistant, available for the emergency. Never the ordinary afternoon. That picture got quietly stitched onto him. So when the answer did not arrive on their schedule, they filed it under too busy. It was never too busy. It was waiting on them to come in and stay, rather than knock once and run. Here is something small before they go further. Let their shoulders fall the smallest fraction. Not the performance of relaxing someone might put on for a room of people. Only enough that the Lord knows they meant it. That is enough for now. Nothing else is required. Not a posture, not a formula, not the right words. Just this small unclenched moment. They do not have to arrive composed. They do not have to explain why it has been so long since they last sat down there without an agenda in their hand. The mother rushing from the school gate to the stove, to the phone call she has been dreading, has learned to pray the way she folds laundry, fast in the gaps standing up. The father working a second shift talks to him on the drive home in short bursts between traffic lights, then apologizes for how little he brought. God did not leave. He moved the chair closer to the door and has been sitting in it. Some of them already know the room I mean, the one bisa doa that actually closes, where they have knelt beside a bed more nights than they can count, saying words nobody else ever heard. That room was never wasted time. Every syllable that left their mouth in there reached him before the sound even finished humming in the air. A student stares at a rejection letter and decides a door to a better life just closed for good. It did not. Doors close. Doorways do not disappear. Hinges do not forget how to move. Even the ones they have given up on. A teenager sits on the edge of her bed at the end of a hard day, phone face down, unsure whether it counts as prayer if she does not have the right words for it. It counts. A man sits staring in a hospital waiting room at the closed double doors, completely convinced that whatever unfolds on the other side is beyond anyone's control, even the Lord's, but it isn't. No door needed an explanation. The door was never the obstacle, the hesitation was. Here is a question worth considering. What has he been doing instead of walking inside? Rehearsing an explanation. Preparing apologies for time he did not spend there, building a case for why he has been distant, as if distance were the true problem, instead of the fear keeping him at arm's length. None of that preparation was ever required, not a single page. He has learned to give God the leftover minutes, the ones between daily tasks, the ones spent falling asleep, the ones squeezed in at red lights. The Lord is not asking for those. He asks for a single undivided minute. The kind he would give someone who traveled a long way just to sit beside them, to lay those leftover minutes down for once, to offer him one not split in half. Here is where the misunderstanding shatters. He has been treating this like an appointment he might not qualify for. It was never that. It was an invitation from one who already knows every reason he might give for staying outside, and he wants him in any way. Nothing about his worth is under scrutiny. Nothing has been tested here at all. Someone has simply been waiting. We know the sound of a house with one important resident and the crowd of people outside hoping to be seen. A receptionist, a schedule. A receptionist, a schedule. A door that only opens for urgent cases, remaining shut for ordinary ones. That image is so common that it slipped quietly into how you imagine him, and it does not belong there. It was actually borrowed from people who were themselves far too tired, too wounded, or too proud to offer anyone a single private minute. And somewhere along the years it got labeled with his name instead of theirs. He does not run a waiting room. He does not sit behind a desk deciding who has earned the next 15 minutes. The real shape of things is closer to the opposite. He is the one standing at the doorway with his hand already resting on the wood, asking to be let into whatever room you are actually in. The kitchen with the dishes still in the sink. The car in the driveway where you have been sitting for 10 extra minutes. The office where you close the laptop but have not gotten up yet. He is not waiting for the version of you that has it together. He is asking for the one who is actually there. Picture two different people standing at the same house. One is a guest buzzed in, checked, approved, given a time slot on someone's calendar. The other is family, holding a kid they forgot they were carrying. Fit to walk in without a meter appointment because the house has always been theirs too. You have been living like that first guest. You were made to be the second. Nobody is buzzing you in. Nobody ever was. Think about what a door really is. It is not a wall. A wall says stop. A door says maybe. It invites you to enter, if you choose to. It says this was built so two sides could meet, not so they could be kept apart. Every closed door you have stood in front of was built with hinges, not just a frame. Built to move, to open and let something through. What they kept describing to themselves as permanent was only ever a hinge waiting for pressure. They have not been locked out of anything. They have been standing very close to something open this entire time, checking the wrong feature of it. They kept checking if it looked shut. He kept waiting for them to try the handle without an offering in their other hand. There is an ancient promise given long before any of them were even born that says whoever asks receives, whoever seeks finds, and whoever knocks will find it opened. Notice what it does not say. It does not say whoever knocks the loudest. It does not say whoever waits the longest without flinching. It does not say whoever brings the most convincing case. It says knock and it opens. That is not a description of difficult negotiation. It is the description of an entrance, already leaning toward them before their knuckles ever touch the wood. If the ache behind that closed door has a name, let it be one that right here before they keep reading near. Just that. Not a whole explanation, not a case built for why they deserve an answer. One word if, that is where they are. Some of them have been guarding a doorway their whole life. The way a soldier guards a border, always alert, never resting, treating every silence as an early warning that something is about to be taken from them. That is exhausting work. And it was never work he asked them to do. He never handed them a post to defend. He handed them a home to live inside. Many believers have made peace with a lesser version of belonging. They visit, they do not stay. They show up for crisis, then slip away before the ordinary conversation can even begin, because those quiet moments feel like they might cost them something they cannot spare: time, honesty, the version of themselves they keep polished for everyone watching. But none of that is required. Here, that polished image is not what God is asking for. An older story sits underneath this one. A house with two sons. One who stayed and grew resentful, sure his obedience had earned him nothing extra. The other left, spent everything, and returned home rehearsing an apology, ready to accept a servant's room. The father did not wait for the apology to finish. He ran to the gate, put a ring back on the returning son's hand, and pointed him toward the table, not the porch. He did not require proof of sincerity at the threshold. That story was never truly about two brothers. It was about how easily a child forgets they were never a guest to begin with. An orphan calculates. A son simply comes. An orphan counts exactly how much time has passed since the last favor was granted, wondering if there is a limit somewhere in the ledger. A son forgets to count because the relationship was never a ledger to begin with. They have been living like they must keep score, but the Lord never once keeps score. He is with them. They may have spent years imagining that his silence was a form of discipline, a closed door meant to teach them to try harder before he would let them through. It was never that kind of lesson. A father does not lock the door to build character in a child he has already claimed. He leaves the door standing open and waits by it. Because waiting is not the same thing as withholding. He wants to take them somewhere further, back to a hillside country full of small stone sheepfolds, low circular walls built by hand. A single narrow gap left open for the sheep to pass through at night. Most of these folds had no wooden gate hung on hinges. The shepherd himself would lie down across that gap once the flock was inside his own body, becoming the only way in or out. A thief could climb the wall from another side in the dark. No one could pass through the entrance itself without stepping over the shepherd first. He did not write this image for scholars sitting in a study somewhere. He wrote it for the one line awaken, the dark wondering who is actually guarding the gap in the wall around their life. Sheep are not dramatic animals. They do not test a wall for fun. They rest only where they feel safe and nowhere else. A flock lying down quietly at night was never decoration, it was evidence. It meant the gap was covered. It meant the shepherd was in place. It meant nothing needed defending by the sheep themselves. That is what safety was supposed to feel like the whole time, not vigilance, rest. The Lord was the one who spoke about that gap in words simple enough for a shepherd to carry home and repeat to his children. He wants us to hear it exactly as it was first spoken, not paraphrased, not softened for easier listening, not shortened to fit a slogan. He told his followers something similar before in different words to a small group of believers who had grown comfortable and a little cold. He stands at the door and knocks. Whoever opens, he will come in and eat with them and they with him. That was never a picture of a landlord inspecting a property he already owns. That was a picture of someone hoping to share an ordinary meal with people who had almost forgotten how close he already was. That was one direction of the same nearness. The Lord asking to enter our room. Now hear the other direction of it. The one that changes everything about how we come to Him. This is what He said. John 10:9. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Read that slowly because it answers more than it first appears to. Notice the shape of the sentence. It does not say, I stand near the entrance. It does not say, he holds the key to it. It does not say, he unlocks it once and steps aside. It says, I am the door. The way in was never a system, a formula, or a set of steps we had to perform correctly. The way in is a person. And that person already made himself the very door we were afraid did not exist. Sit with the middle of the verse for a moment. He will be saved. In the mouth of a shepherd. That word was never abstract. It was never a theory to debate in a lecture hall. Salvation meant just one thing to a sheep. Being inside the fold, when darkness fell, sheltered by walls on every side and the shepherd's own body blocking the entrance. Not stronger than the danger, not smarter than the predators outside, no better behaved than the sheep lying next to it. Simply inside. That is what this scripture offers us. Not a credential we must earn, not a standard we keep reaching for, always falling short. Rather a place inside where the keeper of the gate has already made our safety his responsibility instead of ours. Notice the second part just as carefully. It does not say one enters once and finished. It says we will enter and exit and find pasture. That is not a one-time event. It represents the flow of ordinary daily life. Going out to work, returning home to rest, departing and returning again. All of this happening right through the same doorway, all under the same watchful care. This was never meant as a single visit to claim some blessing we needed and then leave for good. It is written as a home we keep walking through, because it always remains ours. Then the ultimate promise rests on the gentlest word in the entire passage. Pasture. Not a palace, not a stage, not some rare experience reserved for the spiritually gifted. Pasture is simple grass. The daily nourishment that a sheep needs to simply staying alive. It is given daily because yesterday's provision never carries over. He did not promise his people a dramatic rescue followed by a long silence. Instead, he promised the care that comes in small daily portions, just enough peace for the day before them. Enough strength for the conversation they have been dreading. Enough clarity for the next decision, not the 50 after. If they have been waiting for some spectacular sign as proof that they made it through, they have been watching for the wrong evidence. The real evidence is quieter. It is being sustained today. Consider what going out and coming back in actually looks like. It looks like leaving this quiet moment and walking into a kitchen that still needs cleaning. It looks like answering the call they have been avoiding. It means going back to the same co-workers, the same exhausted body, the same unfinished to-do list. None of that disqualifies them from the pasture he promised. That pasture was never a separate place they had to travel to reach. It is the peace that travels with them in and out. Because the door they pass through is not a location. He is a savior, and he goes with them. This also means they do not need a sacred building, a specific posture, or the perfect words in the right order to be with him this way. The doorway is a person, not a procedure. Wherever they are when they finally stop performing and simply arrive, that is where his pasture begins. A parked bus, a hallway between two heavy conversations, the final steps before their own front gate. The Savior is never picky about the ground he meets his people on. He only asks that they actually stand there with him. There is a deep difference between a house someone is allowed to visit and one they are free to live in. Guests always ask before opening a cabinet. They sit near the exit in case they must leave quickly. They speak in quiet whispers. None of that describes what he built for his followers. He did not build for guests. He built a home for sons and daughters who already have every right to open every door inside. The ones who first heard this were humble shepherds and the families surrounding them. People who understood exactly what it cost a man to lay down across a gap all night exposed to whatever stalks the flock in the dark. He did not describe a comfortable scene from a safe distance. He was showing what he would soon do with his own body stretching across the single opening between danger and rest, laying his life down of his own accord, so that going in and coming out could both be perfectly safe on the other side. No one forced the gap shut against him. He chose to lie there. Then he chose to rise, and the way through him has stood open ever since. This is no simple tale of a shepherd who got lucky and survived the night. This is the account of a death that was chosen, not stolen, followed by a resurrection that came exactly as promised. The door did not hold him. The grave could not either. If the door to their deepest fear has ever felt final, never forget. Even the door of death opened again from the inside. When he walked back through it, nothing they are carrying right now is heavier than that one was. Let us look at the question sitting underneath everything we have read so far. Why has silence on the other side of an entrance felt like rejection instead of invitation? Here is the answer, plain enough to hold onto. The door was never a wall they had to argue their way past. The door was a person already standing there, already lying across the gap on their behalf. Long before they learned to knock politely and wait to be judged worthy of what waited beyond it. This was never a promise that every circumstance will open the way they wanted. It is the deeper promise that the way to the Lord has not closed. They were never a stranger asking a stranger for entry. They were part of the flock this whole time. And the opening, keeping them safe, has a face, a name, and down. So the way through would never close on them again. So here is something small we can carry out of today. If we Want. Sometime in the next few hours they find an HL door, a bedroom, a car, a quiet hallway, and close it for 1 minute. They bring no request, bring no list. They just sit there and let the closed door mean the opposite of what fear taught them it meant. Not rejection, but nearness. If a full minute feels like too much, right now they give it 10 seconds. This is not a test of stillness or endurance. It is one small act of coming in. They may feel strange doing it at first. Good. They are not performing for anyone in that room. Nothing is required of them there except staying. They let their breathing slow and breathe out, at times longer than feels natural. Observe what does not happen. No test arrives. No list of requirements gets read aloud. Only quiet and the Lord, who has been waiting with them longer than they knew. There is no need to wait for a crisis to justify walking through his door again. An ordinary day is reason enough. A weary day is reason enough. A day where nothing went wrong and nothing went especially right, where they simply want to sit somewhere quiet for a minute, is reason enough. He has never required a headline event before making room for them. He has only ever required them. They might not feel anything different the first time. That is fine. The 10th time they may notice their shoulders drop before they even try. Somewhere around the 30th quiet minute, they may catch themselves walking toward the closed door without the old flinch, expecting welcome instead of rejection, because their body finally learned what their mind has been slow to believe. Let them lift their eyes toward wherever light enters the space they are in. A window, a lamp, even a thin line under a door somewhere in the house. That light did not have to travel far to reach them. Neither did he. If they have been treating an entrance in their life like something they had to earn the right to open, that expectation can go. Not because letting go changes anything about him, because it changes what they expect to find waiting when they finally knock. They are not a guest who has to be buzzed in through an intercom by someone deciding whether today is convenient. They are family with a key they forgot they were holding the entire time they stood. There's knocking and no one checks a guest list at this door. No one did. He isn't a father too busy with cosmic concerns to share a simple quiet afternoon with you. Bigger problems never fight for his attention the way they do with someone who has limited hours in their day. The Lord never runs out of room like humans do. No long line forms outside this home and no meeting is interrupted when you step inside unannounced. The version of him you inherited said the honored guest always goes first, and the ordinary soul must wait at the edge of the crowd. But his kingdom works the opposite way. He searches for the one standing quietly at the edge, believing their turn will never come. He opens the doorway from his side before they even decide whether to knock. This was never about performing some perfect spiritual stillness. It is an open invitation to stop treating closeness with him like some transaction you complete and then leave. Intimacy was never metered. It was never rationed based on how well you have been behaving lately. It has only ever been offered freely whenever you finally draw near. You have spent a long time treating silence as his answer. But silence was never his answer. It was an open space waiting for you to notice. It was never fully closed, waiting for you to step inside and stop, checking the hinges fearing it might shut on you. Here is the truth, worth keeping, plain enough to carry into whatever room you walk into next. The distance you constantly measured was never the reality between you both. He has been closer than the door this entire time, desiring this brief moment with them long before they thought to seek his presence. They can whisper those words in their own words within their own room with no one else listening. They do not have to use his words, their own. One true phrase is enough. They do not need a greater reason to enter in. They do not need a longer list, a heavier trouble, or a more polished version of themselves standing at the frame. The one guarding this doorway has a face, and that face has never once turned away from the sound of their hand on the wood. They can enter or exit, finding rest in both directions. What had kept them back was never a wall to begin with. It was him the entire time lying across the gap, so they would always have a safe path to walk through. The gate is covered. The shepherd is in place. Nothing needs defending. The way in has a face. That face has never once looked away. He was never far, always near. And he has been asking for a moment alone with them long before they thought to ask for one with him. Amen. Before they go, something short is left in the pinned comment. A few lines written for the next time a door in their life feels heavier than it should. If a particular face came to mind while they were reading this, they can share it. It may have been meant for them as much as it was meant for themselves.